I've avoided viewing Federico Talks Watches up until now because I generally hate watch talk. And when I see guys like Federico with big-ass mics in front of them, it scares me because I think that this mic is going to be used to capture the words of a group of pretentious idiots blowing smoke up their asses about watches. I prejudge Federico. Federico is not pretentious, and I've enjoyed a lot of his content. Federico has worked for authorized watch dealers in the past. His information about the watch industry is fascinating and shocking. I could literally feel the hair standing up on the back of my neck when I heard Federico's answer to a viewer's question about establishing a relationship with a Rolex dealer in hopes of getting one's hands on a Rolex Submariner. The answer Federico gave the viewer was disturbing and went completely contrary to internet groupthink. Before I evaluate a watch channel, the first thing I look for is how potentially compromised the individual is. There are other watch-related YouTube channels owned by watch sellers. I'm okay with watch sellers doing watch YouTube channels, so long as there is some sort of firewall between the watches sold and the watches being talked about on the channel. Federico seems to specialize in selling used watches. He sells new watches, but he appears to be a gray market seller who sells whatever he can get his hands on. The fluidity of Federico's inventory means that he is less likely to have any biases towards any particular brand or watch. The only time my bullshit detector goes up is when Federico gets together with his dweeby partner, John, to promote a watch they're selling or to subtly promote their business. You can even see Federico's body language change when he goes into bullshit mode. John has his own YouTube channel as well. It's called John P. Watches. Fortunately, John doesn't appear too often with Federico. I think John is a bad influence on Federico. I'm okay with a minimal amount of bullshit and plugging of watches that Federico happens to have in stock if this is what Federico needs to do in order to pay the rent. Federico does occasionally do watch reviews of free watches he gets from independent watch companies. I don't think it's possible to do unbiased reviews of a free watch, though Federico does something very unusual and classy with his free watch. Instead of pocketing the free watch, he gives the free watch away to his viewers. The watch seller has a lot more experience with watches and the watch industry than anyone else. Federico is a watch Einstein. I have not encountered anyone yet on YouTube other than Federico's watchmaker, Hans, who seems to know his or her shit like Federico and Hans. Hans makes occasional appearances on Federico's show. Hans is not only a watch genius, he's funny too. I want more Hans. There's this one episode where Federico has Hans on, and Hans is wearing this really cool looking skeleton watch, and I'm not even into skeleton watches. Federico asks Hans what watch he's wearing, and Hans says he made it himself. And I'm like, Hans, what are you thinking? Make more of these watches and sell them. Call them the Hans. They'll sell like hotcakes. As one who knows relatively little about watches, how is it that I can identify that others have expertise? One thing I look for is subtle hints like the following. Federico was once talking about Seiko's spring drive movement. He wasn't impressed by it and didn't have much to say about it, writing it off as basically a quartz movement. People who feign expertise don't behave like this. They don't summarily dismiss something in a field where others claiming to be experts talk at length and in glowing terms about. The biggest tell of a bullshit artist is that the bullshit artist feels the need to throw up photos of some dead guy who worked at Seiko before talking about anything Seiko related. Fake watch experts are always interested in impressing upon you what a vast reservoir of knowledge they have about watches. Federico doesn't engage in this nonsense because real experts don't do this type of thing. With Federico, you're getting solid, interesting content from a real watch expert. In the past, I've talked about YouTube videos that start with the number 5, such as 5 best or 5 worst, as generally being junk content. Federico is the exception to this rule. Federico does a lot of 5s, he also does 3s, and they're always well thought out and informative. Federico doesn't do filler. Federico is operating a business in the watch industry. This is inherently compromising if you are a dispenser of watch information, but to me this is not a big deal. I don't get the sense that the entire channel is ultimately geared towards getting me to buy watches from his store, as I do with, say, Long Island Watches YouTube channel. One should use critical thinking when evaluating Federico's content. Even the journalistic sources that I trust the most, I always filter what they're saying through a critical thinking lens. Not only do I enthusiastically endorse Federico Talks Watches, but I would have absolutely no hesitations about buying a watch from Federico's store, Del Rey Watch.